Okay, so hi everybody. Welcome to the second in our series of the FinTech Association Invest Hong Kong webinar series for 2020. In so many ways, you know, this is an opportunity that has arisen because of COVID. So we're all doing more online, but we're taking this opportunity that also allows us to perhaps include our friends in other jurisdictions to join us here in the second of the series. So today we're talking about regulation meets technology opportunities ahead. And my name is Brian Tang. I'm the co-chair of the RegTech committee, the FinTech Association. And you'll be hearing from some of the leading practitioners, both on the financial institution side, as well as the service solution side, based here in Hong Kong and providing great solutions here in Hong Kong. To open it up, can I please welcome King Leung, who is the head of FinTech for Invest Hong Kong, to say a few words of welcome. Welcome, King.
Okay, so thanks so much, Brian. Hello, everyone. It's great to see many of you. I guess I have to say this. Over the past year to 18 months, our team have been asking ourselves, if we were to look at Hong Kong again, what are the areas that Hong Kong can really stand out in FinTech? So obviously, there are different segments within FinTech. Some of them will require a bigger population, like the lending, the insurtech. And at the same time, there are some very niche areas like capital markets. Now, basically, as we go through the different segments, we basically come to a conclusion that it is our game to be a leader in the area of RegTech, mainly because of the enormous work that HKMA have done. They can garner a lot of respects among regulators around the world. So if we step back looking at FinTech, which basically comprises of three components. There's the fin, the business side, there's the technology, as well as the regulation. So of course, Hong Kong, if we want to be a leader in FinTech, I think the part that we can really stand out is the regulation part, in which we are able to ride on the great reputation that we have based on decades of great work in the regulatory environments, and also the leadership from HMA, SFC, and IA. So if that's the direction that we're going forward, then what should we do next? Now, so the one thing that we are also tracking, as some of you may know, is that Invest Hong Kong has been doing this, what we call the FinTech ecosystem study for the past 3 years. So this is the third year that we're doing it. And just to give you a quick feel, now, the first year, when we did it in 2017, we saw a lot of activities around wealth tech. Now, last year, 2019, we captured the 2018 numbers. We realized that there's a lot of activities in the areas of blockchain. Now, so now in 2020, when we did a recap of what's happening in the past year, including 2019, we saw a lot of activities going on in RegTech. So there's a strong momentum definitely in the past 12 months in that space. So when we look at all the other Hong Kong Inc. partners that we have, so not only Hong Kong, but also our great partners like the three regulators, HMAs, SFC, Insurance Authority, and also we're reaching out to other organizations also have that regulatory remits, including, for example, the Customs Excise Departments that basically gives out the MSO license, and so forth. And then there's the Cyberport and Science Park, in which they're also making this year, the year 2020, as the year that they would like to push RegTech to the forefront as a major priority for their work as well. So as our Hong Kong Inc. partners work together within the public sector side, we also reach out to private sector through the FinTech Association, which is the conduit for a lot of the private sector players. So by working together, we are making the year 2020 as the year that we would like to push RegTech to the next level. In doing so, the focus for us is really around adoption. So by that, for the solution provider side, which is I think many of you are online, our work is basically around showcasing the amazing the RegTech companies, so that more financial institutions are aware of them, what they do, and what they're strong at. So having a platform to showcase their strengths is one thing that we are focusing on. Now, at the same time, we also work with our partners such as the HMA. So for example, some of you might have participated at the HMA Demo Day. in which we work with HMA, Cyport, and also SunPark, in which HMA would invite the client side, the demand side, so the financial institutions to participate at the demo day. And then for Invest Hong Kong, Cyberport, and Science Park, we would basically reach out to the supplier side, to reach out to the solution providers, so that we are matching the demand and supply. And this is something that we intend to do even more going forward. So with that, I just want to thank all of you for joining us, because we would really like you to be more active in participating in the whole RegTech narrative, so that we can make this as a more competent, eventually being a beacon, a shining spot for Hong Kong FinTech going forward. So thank you very much. And I guess I would hand it back to Brian. So off to you, Brian.
Thank you very much, King, for those opening remarks and for reminding us of how Hong Kong Inc. is really coming together. I'm really pleased because I've always called RegTech the secret sauce. So by being the secret sauce, not only can RegTech help serve the financial institutions, the incumbents, but also the different aspects of fintechs, whether it's in digital banks or insurtechs, or for even digital asset platforms, right? And wealth techs as well. So the next part of our program today, we're going to invite each of our two RegTech solutions to share very briefly who they are and where they come from and how they serve within the RegTech ecosystem. So maybe with that, can I please invite Dima Goodzeit from Leap Expert to talk, spend a few words sharing with the audience so that they better understand what Leap Expert does. Take it away, Dima.
Thank you, Brian. So Leap Expert, we are answering, I hope you all can see my screen. Right. So in Leap Expert, we're answering this question. How do companies these days are messaging their clients? And when I say companies, I mostly mean regulated financial institutions. Now, and the answer to this question is implied in the slide that you can see. Even though all the banks in the world have policies around what it means to message clients, which is not using consumer messengers, in reality, this is what's happening. Bankers of any type are using personal messengers to message their clients daily. And it's a global epidemic which we are trying to solve. Now, when this happens, when bankers using personal messengers to message clients, there are a few large gaps. So the biggest gaps being absolute lack of compliance controls. So all the messages over, let's say, WhatsApp are totally bypassing compliance pipelines that banks invested heavily in. Second gap is no data ownership. All the information exchanged between the banker and the client belongs with the personal device of a banker and does not belongs with the bank. And of course, there's a lack of visibility of overall communication, B2C communication. And that's the reality. What we do in Leap Expert, we are bridging the gap. We're finally allowing company employees to message all the clients in a way which is okay with both sides. It's okay with the client and it's okay with the bank. The reason why it's okay with the client, because clients don't need to change behavior. Clients can keep using messengers they like, while bankers are using our applications or any of our other federated enterprise applications, such as Microsoft Teams and others. So a company employees using our tools, clients using any type of messenger, everybody can communicate in a way which is totally integrated with the existing compliance needs of the bank. That's about us. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Dima, for the nice, succinct description of what you all do. And I think as all of us are living through COVID, we understand the importance of this platform, this technology. Next up, I most welcome Frederick Ho from Jumio to share more about what Jumio does in this space.
Thank you, Brian. Okay. Good afternoon to all attendees, to my fellow panelists, and thank you again to Invest Hong Kong and Hong Kong FinTech Association for extending this invite to be here. So my name is Frederick Ho. I'm the Vice President for Jumio in APAC. Our company basically enables online identity verification for any business who are taking your business online and you're performing online customer acquisition. So you will not see the user that you sign up and provide service to. And you need to have a way to verify that the true identity of the individual that you onboard is who he says he is. So that is the service that we provide as a cloud service. And our company has been in this business for 10 years now. And globally, we have crossed over 300 million online identities verified. So that is critical to us because that gives us the data, right, to perform machine learning, to look at how we actually can improve the accuracies, taking data feeds at a global level to design what we can deliver to our clients. So our service is a global service. So any client that signs up with us, you know, they will have access to 200 countries and 4,000 identity document types. So if you are looking at local, regional, global customer acquisition, we would be that one-stop shop to help you to verify the individuals of people that you sign up. The kind of expertise that we bring into this business over 10 years really combines what technology is able to deliver with AI and machine learning, as well as ongoing skills and expertise that has got to come in because this space is always changing, right? Online identity fraud is coming in all different fashions, right? So this is a very active area that we have a lot of resources, a lot of brains behind what we deliver, because we are protecting the perimeter of all our clients who are moving their business online. So accuracy rates are critical because on one hand, it is the fraudsters that we're trying to prevent from coming into the system. But on the other hand, it is also about user experience, that you cannot make this so difficult that people can't sign up and become a client. Right. So the design elements and the brains, the thoughts that goes behind this is also a big part of what we do. And over these years, of course, now we have worked with a lot of regulators, including HKMA, Bank Negara, BSP in the Philippines, MAS in Singapore, that a model of eKYC, right, is actually a good enabler, right, for a digital economy strategy. So with this, we have gone on to, of course, onboard many clients in fintech, in financial services, as well as you know, in other spaces that we can speak about in this course. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks so very much, Frederick. Again, this is another space with COVID. The importance of being able to onboard clients, you know, remotely becomes, you know, foremost in a lot of minds and considerations. So for this webinar today, I will now virtually invite, if it were a real one, we would have different seating and the like, but I invite my fellow co-chair, Irene Lee, onto the virtual panel stage here. Irene is the co-chair with me on the RegTech committee in the FinTech Association, and that's one of the unique things of the FinTech Association RegTech committee. You know, we don't just represent, if you like, the startups and the RegTechs and solution providers. We have a vast network and composition of the actual solution users, right, like such as Irene and some of the big banks and the fintechs, but also a lot of consultants and other service providers that come together as a community. So the other thing I would like to do is remind all participants, we will have a question and answer section at the end. So please send over your questions so that I can start looking and thinking about them as the speakers speak and select some of your questions at the end. So maybe let me start with the first question. So as you've heard from King, you know, Hong Kong is really now seeking to promote RegTech, which is fantastic. But let's hear from the actual market participants. So Irene, maybe if we can start with you as an authorized institution, regulated entity. Can you speak to some of the support and engagement that the Hong Kong regulators have been engaging in to grow and adopt RegTech here in Hong Kong?
Sure, thanks, Brian. I think that the opening from King is very interesting and exciting as well. So before this webinar, I actually look at the statistics from the HKMA sandbox webpage, and surprisingly, as of the end of August, RegTech is, I think, contributes the majority of the solutions that HKMA is looking upon at the sandbox channels. So it echoes and ties back to what King mentioned. In 2019 and 2010-20, actually the key focus is on RegTech. So wearing my hats as compliance officers in UBS, looking at private banking as well as RegTech, as well as looking at the RegTech committee in the FinTech Association. So I think that's a very important message from the regulator. So regulator treat us as a partner as well as also industry participants. So in one side, I think they are very supportive as you look at the the different publications and websites that they have posted on it, they have started to give us a lot of dialogues with the industry players to see what sort of helpful, accommodative kind of regulations they can help us to group with the new RegTech solutions. And the other thing is that they're also very keen to understand what are the pain points that we are facing off in the banking industry. Say, for example, during the COVID-19. So you can see that during the COVID-19 situation, they issued quite a number of circulars, including HKMA and SFC, in asking for the banks to voice out if there's any difficulties in running the business. They also remind us some of the regulatory intent and expectation when coming to new RegTech solutions as well as new business model. So then we are joining hand in hand, right? So we have some new solutions to help our clients during COVID-19, but on the parallel side, HKMA and SFC also guide us through what are their expectations when there's new things coming up and new situation coming up. So we can see that not just a change or disruptive mindset from the financial institutes as a bank, we can see that the mindset has also changed completely from the regulator side. So they still wearing a hat at regulator, but somehow they also open their door for dialogues with the different channels. So it is more, I think, easier for the bank to really knock their door, call up randomly to ask maybe stupid questions from their end. Say, for example, hey, I want to do remote onboarding during COVID. I don't have time or even impossible to meet the clients face to face. So is it possible just receive all the physical, the electronic docs for accompanying without meeting the clients? Then these are the questions that we may be reluctant to ask in the past, but now because of the new situations, we try to engage a lot of touch points with them. So I think it's kind of change the mindset and change of the landscape. And we can also see that at least from a regulator side, they're really quite keen to cope with the change and embrace the opportunities and the difficulties as well. So when you look at the publications like the RegTech Watch, that week HKMA issued, I think the 4th one, you can see they are willing to share those RegTech cases. What are the solutions like biometric authentication for remote onboarding and the RPA or machine learning to look at false positives or the monitoring side. So that's quite a lot of insight from HKMA and also their focus as well. I think echo to Brian's question, of course I can share more the pain points and use case later, but I think I want to stress this at the opening. These are the really strong feelings that I want to share at the outset, at the beginning of this webinar.
Thank you so very much for that, Irene. And again, it's so helpful to hear from the regulated entities' perspective. And in fact, as you alluded to, HKMA has been issuing the RegTech watches. Last year there was an AML CTF RegTech forum, which focused on that space, and they had the 200 authorized institutions visiting the HKMA, pushing the bar in relation to that. And the HKMA has also engaged KPMG to issue a white paper, which is targeted for the Hong Kong FinTech Week in November. So and to engage in more adoption here in Hong Kong, which is fantastic. Maybe now turning over to the solution providers, maybe Frederick and Dima, being on the ground, maybe you can speak to how some of these initiatives that the HKMA is introducing is positively impacting you all. Dima, you want to start? Oh, Frederick, you unpinged first.
That's a signal. Hey, thanks, Brian. Yeah, I think that as a RegTech solution supplier, I mean, the key metrics that we want to show is that we have somehow increased productivity or reduced costs as part of helping our clients to meet compliance. And specifically in the space that I work in, which is remote onboarding, identity verification work itself can be measured, like in terms of our clients' assessment of how much time, how much effort, and how much cost did they invest to meet the expectations of the regulator, maybe on metrics such as the false acceptance rates the concern that you know, an online onboarded client could have spoofed the system, and you know, the technology wasn't good enough. So I think a lot of the companies today, whether is it in Hong Kong or Malaysia, they are everyone trying to, of course, tighten the technologies that they have. But this identity proofing space really involves multiple capabilities, right? And it results in a burden to organizations with respects to vendor integration and workflow management to make this whole thing work. Just a quick look at you know, the kind of work that goes behind delivering a good outcome for remote onboarding. You need expertise to configure, maintain algorithms around facial technologies. You need teams of experts to know how to look at online fraud, and anything that technology cannot take care of, right? It becomes the gap between the technology capability and the regulatory requirements. So it's either the clients have got to fill that themselves, or they would have got to look to their vendor to provide the full stack solutions. So we kind of see that a lot of virtual bank, fintechs, they really want to remain agile, right? In this highly competitive space, you know, in fintech markets, and maybe in this space itself, really looking at outsourcing certain functions around meeting regulatory requirements on remote onboarding. So where I think that we look at technology as a way of helping us to improve and do things better, using technology in data extraction accuracies, identifying what areas of online identity fraud are we going to pay attention to. For example, is if in your onboarding, 30% of fraud was people who were changing the photographs on the IDs, you better be very good at catching that. As opposed to, you know, you detected only 1% where someone tried to change a hologram, right? So I think the prioritization of where you put your resources so that you can come back to meet the regulator's expectation of a 2% false acceptance rate ceiling, right? So these things really goes back into the planning, and whether as how you handle your output to deliver your service is really critical. So my point around, of course, the current regulations would be that as a supplier, is ultimately critical that the cost and the productivity really is commensurate with meeting the expectations of the regulators, at least in this space of online remote onboarding.
Great, thank you, Frederick. But so the question is more about the role of the regulators that are encouraging this right now.
Yeah.
So, and the HKMA and others have issued outsourcing kind of guidelines, as well as AI governance guidelines. So presumably, hopefully, these have been helpful for you to facilitate the progress of your solutions. Yes.
That's correct. Yes, that's right.
Okay, good. Dima, you're on the ground, a homegrown RegTech. Perhaps you could speak to, again, the role that the regulatory environment and the regulators have played to kind of encourage the adoption of RegTech.
Sure, absolutely. And I'll be speaking from the more communication angle of things. So what's almost unique about Hong Kong, that Hong Kong regulator, both HKMA and SFC, clearly defined what it means to be what it means to have a meaningful and okay conversation between banks and the clients, right? So there are other geographies don't mention this, which means it's forbidden by default. In Hong Kong, it's the opposite. It's allowed if you meet those requirements, and those requirements are very clear, or listed, and almost always being up to date as well. And that's also helps us to kind of to sell our solution to financial institutions, because there are no gray spots. It's very clear what needs to be done. Our platforms like ours are meeting those touch points, and then it's becoming allowed from the regulatory perspective to use solutions like ours in any type of financial institutions. Sorry. Yeah. So again, just to summarize, that's what's unique about Hong Kong. It's very clearly defined, and there are no gray zones about what's allowed and what's forbidden.
And you know, I think that's a great point, because so your point is, of course, that the more clarity, the easier that, you know, that for you to communicate, yes, this is clear what's possible, and this is what my solution does. And then to Frederick's point, you know, the role of the regulator in terms of facilitating some of this and being supportive of the solutions actually solving the problems. Great. Well, you know, so in terms, but one of the questions arises is what priorities and what use cases financial institutions are prioritizing, especially in light of COVID. And in some ways, both of you, and in particular, sweet spot in terms of your solutions really helping in the COVID situation. But maybe if we can turn to Irene first. So Irene, so right now, across different financial institutions, including yourselves, so what are the higher priority ones? You know, in addition to those that would be quite well known, such as communications, right? Because everybody's now a Zoom expert, or remote onboarding, because without which you can't actually conduct business. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I think if the same question asked me at the beginning of the year, the priority would be always to maintain the minimum business model. For example, we cannot meet the customers and we cannot do face-to-face because I think from a private banking side, a human touch from our salesperson and the client is really very important because we provide retail a very personalized investment advice. So at the beginning of the year, our priority is always to maintain how to set up the remote onboarding kind of channels, and also we may also be busy with setting up work from home kind of infrastructure, as well as we set up the off-premises trading, all the setup. So the priority at the beginning is pretty much to maintain the bread and butter. But then if you're asking me the question right now, I think the priority has slightly changed to the control framework, behavioral detection, and the fraudulence kind of thing, because we have all the transactions being set up at the offline, but however, how to control it, what's the monitoring at the back of the scene. So if there is a lot of trading in off premises and our salesperson working from home, is that RegTech solutions that we can apply to look at the behavioral data there. So priority change to the conduct issues. I think it echoes to the HKMA latest RegTech watch publication. They look at conduct. And HKMA also very focused on the conduct, the culture, and the like. So how to raise the awareness of all the compliance issues. So maybe I can front run a little bit to talk about the pain points here. So we have a lot of data, right? A lot of channels, a lot of reports that are in place. Some are static, some are not, some are very structured, some are not. So if we want to look at the behavior of the sales staff, normally we will listen to the tapes, look at the emails, tracing all the paper or contact notes where after they meeting clients or talk to the clients, all our paperwork. Somehow in the past, we just rely on those, maybe the archived folders or looking at emails and etc. And some of them are very unstructured. Some of them are just voice records, and some of them are emails, some of them are a combination of things. So conventionally, we have our own maybe data analytics kind of approach, maybe lexicon basis, keyword basis. But somehow when you change to the work from home environment, they already have video onboarding, maybe voice recording, a lot of things. Then a lot of combination of data. These are the new pain points that the bank maybe struggle to how to pick up the unusual stuff easily, faster, and efficient. So it becomes how to detect conduct issues, suspicious red flag kind of thing from the work from home environment, and to sustain in the long run, because it's really time consuming, costly if we do it manually. So when I look at the RegTech watch, that's some insights for us. Some RegTech solutions provide standardized things, so you can pick up easy stuff, apparent things, just leave the difficult things for human intervention, like passing the most difficult one to the compliance department. So we are looking at very complicated case, and it's still not solving the whole lot of things, because we really look at full automations, how to detect conduct issues. I think maybe I throw out a big question here for conduct detection. And I think I also appreciate Frederick and Dima about the onboarding kind of solutions, plus the instant messaging solution. I think our bank both adopt the both channels. But when looking at monitoring and control issues in looking at human behavior, which is a very difficult kind of judgment, and looking at the static data. So maybe something that maybe I flow a question here, maybe I'm keen to hear about for the floor, Frederick and Dilma, what's your view in the industry, or what's the RegTech new solutions that you can provide for the banking industry like us?
Yeah, so allow me to pick this up. So we definitely see a change in this COVID times, and the changes, first of all, speed of adoption, right? If the beginning of this year, all the financial institutions we're talking with, we're just thinking about solutions like ours to be able to communicate with the clients in a compliant way, then COVID caused almost immediate adoption, of course, as fast as each bank can go. So we see that even banks who previously were not looking into space are actively looking into the space. And the reason is because of this new normal, remote work, right? So all those buzzwords, they're causing a behavior shift when it comes to communication in general. And of course, messaging these days is 80% of all communication channels. So Irene mentioned that previously they were looking on emails, phone calls, but in reality, most of the business right now, especially from home, is done over messaging, and we definitely see this massive wave of behavioral shift throughout the industry.
Great, thank you, Dima. What, Frederick? Again, it's been a busy time for you too.
It has. Maybe if I can just share a little bit about the use cases first, and then I'll jump on to Irene's questions a bit later. I think that in the last 6-9 months, we do see that the work that we have done with our clients has made a critical impact in areas, for example, like government aid disbursement. If I cite examples of Philippines where it's very hard to get government money down to the man on the street, right, and know that you get the money to the right person, and that they're the right recipients. The combination of using verified identities through the whole fintech ecosystem, right? The digital payments, the wallets, the verified identities behind these, right, now became a informal platform where it really performs this whole function about financial inclusion, right? And that we see that this became something that was very quickly dispersed, and I think that it has made a big social impact. I also see the possibilities of what we do, right, in a bit more related parallel examples would be how digital health ID systems, which is really incorporating COVID-19 test results, combined with your health declaration records, combined with contact tracing, and then identity verified. That this combined together, right, is already being used as a means to facilitate economic reopening. So whether is it the reopening of air travel or even opening of going back to your manufacturing office, your manufacturing plant, right, your office, and you need to be sure that that person has been tested, right, and can be verified with identities, right, and then the test results. I think the combination, this may be something that a lot of governments are looking at as they try to reopen, between countries and even domestically as well, right? So that really has been a lot of the activities keeping us busy during the COVID era, where we were doing a bulk of this kind of work.
Great, thank you, Frederick. So what I'm hearing a little bit is, in some ways, both of you are in the smart pipe business, right? Whether it's through the messaging space or actually onboarding and communicating with customers. I think the next level is the thing Irene was talking about is the analytics and the behavioral patterns. So now that we have these pipes, how do we change the behavior, not just of customers, but also behavior of our employees, right? And steer them in the right direction, which is, again, a strong role of compliance. And as I think Irene said, the upskilling so that you have compliance 2.0 kind of individuals who are using technology and adding their added value. So then maybe let me turn the topic a little bit to, in a sense, why Hong Kong, right? So, I think what Hong Kong has been very innovative in the fintech space in terms of, opening up of VBs and insurtechs, and even with the SFC allowing for digital asset trading platforms, right? So so maybe if each of you, I think, has a particular different perspective in relation to some of this, maybe we'll start with you again, Irene. You know, why Hong Kong for RegTechs? Because at the end of the day, Hong Kong is a relatively small-ish market vis-a-vis the size of the population, but it is, of course, a global financial center.
Yeah. So I treat Hong Kong as part of the GBA. So we're looking at very key components and the international hub for GBA. So I always look at Hong Kong from a GBA, Great Bay Area angle. That's why then we will have a lot of RegTech kind of opportunity and maybe difficulties. So maybe I front run a little bit to talk about what I'm focusing on, why Hong Kong. And I think also give some credits to Invest Hong Kong. I think a couple of months ago, they issued quite a few publications together with HMA in looking at boosting Hong Kong as a regional hub for family offices, asset managers. I think these are the things that we can position ourselves really in a very niche and unique positions in the Greater Bay Area, and then as part of the China and as part of the global kind of regime. And standing from a private banking point of view, and global family offices is really a very great opportunities and areas for us, and they comprises different kind of demands and customer tastes, including individuals, family members, the family members' company and investment arms, as well as then one level up is the operating entities, and then of course the conglomerate. So the demands from the global family office includes retail, corporates, and conglomerates. And then you can see that they are coming with very tailor-made kind of requirements, and where we may have a lot of different fintech solutions for them in running their own business, in running their own asset management, their own family monies, and also their dealings in our bank. And then we also need some RegTech solutions for them to look at monitoring the trends, monitoring all the trade behaviors, and also for themselves in doing their own reporting, in doing their own business as well. So we are no longer a bank for them, but a partner, maybe a RegTech partner for them, but wearing a hat of bank. So we have a multiple role for those kind of customers, and this is a growing kind of segments. Doesn't mean that the affluence is the keys, but we can have different segments behind, or maybe retail, high net worth, and then family office. They were boosting up into the multiple segments. So I think why Hong Kong again? Because I think we are quite experienced in serving into different needs, ranging from retail, corporates, and high net worth. So we can share a lot of experience when expanding the maybe the new cross-border or Greater Bay Area initiative to other Chinese provinces or countries. As for the family offices and the other affluents, they are still really in a catching up mode. So that by sharing our experience to them, by sharing our regulatory kind of experience in lobbying, in advocacy, in drafting the guidance, we can tell them what the risks are in running the business, as well as what the regulation should be for the new initiative. Then we can work together with the Greater Bay Area as a whole, and then together with the Greater Bay Area, work with the offshore jurisdiction and countries as well. So we are standing behind, we have China, and then in our front of it, we also have our international kind of partners. So I think this is the perfect positions that Hong Kong can still ride on for maybe for another 100 years. So I am very promised and optimistic for Hong Kong to stay ahead, and as a followers, as a leader for RegTech and the other financial kind of roles as well.
Thanks so much, Irene. I know both of us are quite interested in the Wealth Connect space, right? So that's where another way that Hong Kong can add value and new products vis-a-vis 10 times the size of the population into the Greater Bay. And I kind of like your characterization. So now banks as RegTechs. right? Rather than the other way around. That's pretty cool. Dima and Frederick, love to hear your thoughts in terms of, why Hong Kong?
Hey, Brian. So I think that Hong Kong, with the launch of the virtual banks, is one of the most exciting places to be in. At a time when they operate in a space where the biggest fintechs are operating in the same space, the likes of Alibaba, Line, Rakuten, Tencent, right? When all players, they have the same license, same capital, same compliance rules, I think that this makes it a highly competitive space, right? And where I think that the attractiveness of HKMA's regulations and the positions around data privacy and even offshore processing of data, given that they accepted that there was the trend is moving into this direction for efficiency, for advantages as a economic strategy. The adoption of cloud, right, for the regulated industries, and even, of course, outlines of the National Digital Identity Program. So it sets a very strong framework and attractiveness of what the future model could look like. And that if we were to set our technologies and frame our parameters, then what have we got to ensure that our product capabilities, right, could really now deliver the kind of differentiation that the fintech community, the banks itself, right, could really make a difference. And I think that with that kind of a model, right, which is very matured, right, you have then the advantage to then move northwards, southwards into the neighboring markets, whether into Southeast Asia or to the other markets, because that kind of experience itself, working within that kind of that regulatory framework, really sets a tone for even for the other markets to start to look at what Hong Kong is doing, right, and then maybe adopt really best practices around that.
Fantastic, thanks, Frederick. Some of you who know me, I'm a lawyer, so I like the fact that there's good law as one of the reasons for being, and rule of law as to why Hong Kong. Dima, you could have chosen to set up in so many places around the world. Why Hong Kong?
Yeah, so we found Hong Kong as an ultimate playground for RegTech in general because of multiple reasons. So first of all, there is a very strong, well-defined framework here that again says how things needs to be done. Second, any who and who in financial institutions are here, right? So it's a very small geographical space, and you can find the biggest banks in the world, your target audience here. And then, of course, you have the support of wonderful organizations like InvestHK and Cyberport, who really not just saying they're helping startups, but they really helping startups. So promoting startups, bringing to different events, bringing opportunities, and this is really invaluable for us. So it's like a perfect storm of all different ingredients, which makes Hong Kong a perfect playground to create a successful RegTech startup.
Ooh, I like playground, when we all can go out and play, right? and frankly, if you go to Central right now, the traffic jam is tremendous, right? So people are out there and well and truly. Super. So now I guess we talked about some of the challenges already, and Irene touched a little bit about this in terms of AI and big data. Did anybody, Irene or Frederick, do you want to speak a little bit more to this in terms of addressing some of these issues? So part of the problem being that I joke about RegTech, it's not a traditional B2B play, right? So with the traditional B2B, you are serving an enterprise, and the question is whether the enterprise will accept it. But in RegTech, the proposed customer, the enterprise, will say one of the first questions is, well, what do the regulators think? Right, so it's actually an interesting triumvirate in terms of how to promote RegTech. Maybe Frederick, would you want to speak to this?
Well, we are really coming from the position that as a EKYC operator, trying to piece together the entire service to meet these requirements, that we see a future trend where the increased complexity of compliance, right, will also become a problem for the organizations, right? Regulators are constantly, of course, having to look at where the gaps are and then filling them. I just want to cite one of the recent Gartner market guides around identity proofing. And they just did a call that a projection that by 2023, 75% of organizations will be using a single vendor with a strong identity orchestration capabilities for the purpose of connections to many other third-party systems to deliver the entire outcome. Maybe this one addresses a little bit of what Irene was alluding to earlier, you know, where as Irene portrayed, you know, the different areas, scenarios where you have got to do the reviews, you know, the risk management parts of it. There is a trend towards a platform approach, that there are companies with a suite of capabilities, and that it's like a switch that you can actually, you know, trigger on and off. How much and how little do you need something to be? It is ideal for a certain market, but it's even more important when you're doing multiple markets, because regulations in different countries will not be the same, right? And it will be highly costly, of course, for any kind of a financial institution to have got to adjust and reset every time you go into a new space, because dealing with the slight tweaks in regulations, right, may mean a lot of work at the back end as well, right? So I think that where we see this space that will move towards is companies really able to deliver this and single, from onboarding to transaction, onboarding to name screening to transaction monitoring, right? In a single flow, right? That you can still have got your levers, right, to actually manage this, you know, to really tailor to the kind of market strategies that you're trying to hit at. Irene, yeah.
I think I really entirely agree with you. So there's a journey for the bank to transform, right? Particularly, we are traditional banks, so we highly rely on mainframe kind of solutions, and we have a lot of legacy systems. So if we want to change a little bit to adopt some of the like outside vendors, it is a cost to us. And not just the inception cost, and as well as the maintenance cost as well. So somehow when we look at all the solutions outside of the market, oh, it's so tempting, interesting, exciting. I want to have all of them. And you rightly pointed out that we cannot solve everything in the world. So somehow we only can solve one by one in the pipeline. Quick wins may be something that we are focusing on. And then we cannot solve everything. Like we cannot just push out a platform and then shred all the legacy systems. That would be too painful for us. As you rightly pointed out, that we have standard global systems and then regional ones, and then now we're back to the standardized ones again to look at global standards and also cater to regional standards. So there's a lot of different small systems plugged together and then become a chunk, a robot, and cannot be tweak it anymore for small changes. So you can see how what's the dilemma we have in place. So some of the vendors, it's so tiring to talk to UBS somehow, because we may be interesting to talk to them, but somehow when we look at the due diligence for one thing, for costing another thing, then we feel we try to give them up, because we try to solve the small things first. And then why I always said that bank become a RegTech, because we forced to be. Because when we bring the solution to our management and then give them the bill, and then they got shocked. Oh, if I want to introduce the system into, or solutions into our mainframe, that means I need to compete for the other 10 years for this kind of amount. Maybe many of the decision makers may not be with the bank for 3 or 5 years later, but the pain will goes on once we sign on the contract. So it forces us to think about whether to outsource or do it in-house. Then we try to look at how to do both. Like we cannot do in-house for everything, but we need some help for the others. So the new model could be in the future is that something that we can open up for the vendors to join us and build something new for the bank like us, for so chunky like us, and then to a less cost, because cost is really a big issue for us. We have a lot of ideas, we have good people, we have good infrastructure, good policy, but budget is something that we always want to manage, and for sustainability as well. So maybe not sure whether I addressed your questions, but this is really to be frank, it's really frank to share that's the pain from the bank like us.
Thank you. And I think, look, we can go on for hours just on that topic alone, right? Because you're talking about the spaghetti of legacy. You're talking about how there are point solutions that are coming through, but they're still not solving the overall problem. And then you can open up into the concept of open APIs and the like, right? And API platforms. So we can talk much more about that. But in the interest of time, I wanted to ask 2 more questions at least, and then hopefully I'll have time to answer some Q&A. So the first question I kind of had for this the group here is, you know, if you had a wish list, you know, what is your one top wish to kind of very briefly to improve RegTech adoption here in Hong Kong? What do you think that can be done either by the regulators or maybe by the industry kind of itself to improve RegTech adoption in Hong Kong? Maybe start with you, Irene.
Yeah, sorry, maybe I will start first. I think HKMA give us a RegTech survey, right? And we completed ourselves. When we look at the question, we also asked the same question. What would be the future state like? Should it be just rely on HKMA to write all the prescriptive rules for us, we just follow, or actually just a risk-based environment so that we have a lot of discretion to build our own? And then eventually, I think the new state could be ideally that we should be on the same boat. So we are not just the industry players, and then together we are also a community. And then the community comprises with executor, regulator, government officials, and the players, right? But then they can be changing their role as well. So we can be thinking of a regulator like a regulator. So when they draft something up, can we also part of the pan as well? Can we also talk to them even before public consultations and to share us, this is the industry practice, leave us alone for some discretion because we know where the risks are. This is a very established industry and we run it for 100 years already and we know where to sit in. And please give us a room. But maybe for some of the risk category, we need the regulators to write something very prescriptive to cater for scenarios. Then we can tell them. So it is a more flexible way of approach. I think it's similar to what I've seen in those China officials when they issue things. They have a lot of closed door discussions to really sit on the ground and ask about what do you want to be. Can we run a pilot first, or can we try something, try run first? And then I think maybe in the future, that could be a way of doing it like a joint venture between regulators and the banks.
So more co-creation of rules.
Yeah,
very good.
Of rules, I like
Dima?
that.
Yeah, and I would like to totally second Irene on this. So in my kind of ideal dreams, I see almost workshop or framework where startups working together with regulator to refine the products to meet the requirement better, right? So like so exactly what Irene said, joint venture or whatever framework it is to create solutions which are really addressing the need and not trying to address the need and then regulator says no and so on, right? So it will shortcut so many processes in great products creation in general.
Very cool. Thank you. Kind of like the sandbox idea, but really beefed up, really, right?
Yeah, more than that, yes.
Exactly. Frederick, any thoughts?
Yeah, my wish request will really be a lot more industry sharing, and that where good use cases, can be really showed that what we have done in this space has been successful and it does actually counted for something. Generally it's just about overcoming mentality mindsets about the third-party risks. Of course, now you're going to give some core functions to some other companies. So we need to show a model that this really has delivered outcomes. The future of digital banking could be all cloud, right? But there's a big journey, a long journey to get there, right? And I think that showing little successes along the way is really critical.
Thank you very much for the Frederick. And in some ways, that's what FinTech Association is trying to do as we kind of bring that together as well. So there was at least one question that came from the floor here, and there are a couple of others, but I think I can only address one before I close it up and ask my last question. The question was about GBA opportunities. So Irene talked a lot about GBA. Frederick and Dima talked about North and South. Right. Anyone want to either Frederick or Dima want to touch upon how you are positioning yourselves for GBA?
Yeah, I can quickly mention. So our customers are kind of the biggest tier 1 banks in the world, and we have a project both in Hong Kong and in mainland China, So yes, it's luckily for us, when it comes to communication, the regulations are pretty similar, right? Besides some critical moments which we are addressing. But what's more interesting, it's not only China and Hong Kong, but the communication between China and Hong Kong, because this is where also the complexities come into play when it comes to where information should be stored, how it should be handled. This is totally different when it comes to both geographies. So yes, we have experience, and we are solving those challenges daily.
So what I was impressed by your platform is, you've got, the ubiquitous WeChat there, right? So and that's, Irene will know her bankers. I know in my former shop, the bankers needed that and they use that. So you have to make sure that you use the platform, you're integrated with the platforms used onshore.
Correct.
Fantastic. So maybe I wanted to ask, as the hour is drawing near, my last kind of question to you all. So I think we have quite a few RegTechs in the virtual room here. So what one piece of advice would you have for RegTechs to be able to more successfully engage in the customers, if you like, the clients, whether it's more traditional banks, insurance companies, asset managers, or maybe in terms of the fintechs or the digital asset trading platforms? What one advice would you give to the RegTechs out there to succeed here in Hong Kong? Irene, I start with you again as the main customer.
Sorry, I may missed a little bit on the last bit of the question. Can you?
So if you are speaking to RegTechs out there, what advice would you give them for them to succeed, to engage with you or with other financial institutions?
Yeah, I think it's more they appear like a RegTech solution providers, but somehow the thing that lacking of is the business sense or the business practicality. So they may have a very great idea or standardized version for us, but then maybe it's more on the understanding on the business environment, the bank use cases, and also the regulator kind of expectation, so that they can always come with a very tailor-made solution for ourselves with more flexibilities. So I think if the RegTech solutions can have all these components when they come to us, then it would be very easy that, hey, this is very tailor-made for us, very easy. I just adopt it, click the button, and then we can just use it. And this is one thing. The other thing would be we just not really look for solving everything in the world, right? So to help for solve the small thing first. Maybe it's just a very small step for among the whole value chain would be a multi-million-dollar solution for us. Maybe it's just transform a share folder with a lot of Excel and then become a very automated kind of dashboard, and then we can provide assessment to it. So one of the use case I can think of is we have a lot of regulatory text to look at across the globe, not just Hong Kong. We look at China, we look at APAC, we look at Swiss as well, or the EMEA, and to see what the extraterritorial impact of those regulations to us. So we need a depository first, and then we need to track what is the impact assessment. Then repeatedly the circular will come out, the regs will come out. What are the relevance between all these circulars throughout all the past 10 years? Then we need to track the trend and then to see what's the delta and what's the change impact us. So there's a lot of human and a judgment call. But if transforming into a RegTech solution, what would be the kind of product for us? Maybe this is something that if can build it up as a utility, we can also share it with our industry players, associations, because everyone will want to love it, because everyone will look at it in the same piece of regulations and try to adopt and translate back in a bank, and with a seamless kind of way and with a low cost kind of solutions. So these are the maybe something readable technology kind of a regulatory tracker, maybe something that we can build a utility and sell it to a regulator as well. Then they can build up something more easier for us to cope with it, instead of we just read off from the website. So maybe that's something that the RegTech players to think of ahead to make something more tailor-made for a bank use case.
Great. So point solution and then machine readable regulations, which is something the FCA is focused on. That's what we've been working on for a couple of years now. So awesome. Dima and Frederick, you know, you've both been very successful in the Hong Kong market. What words of advice would you have to RegTechs here or those thinking of coming here to Hong Kong?
Right. So have patience, right? Because especially in the RegTech world, the selling cycles tend to be long, longer than in other types of banking solutions. And the second, when approaching a bank, you first need to have support from a business unit rather than just from the compliance unit. It really helps to drive things inside financial institutions.
Thank you, Dima. Frederick.
I think from my perspective, Irene has given us all the clues. I think that we got to be very clear what is the business outcome that our solution can deliver. I mean, in my world, it's about the easier eKYC experience. It translates to user conversion. It translates to market share. Full stop. Right. And then from the cost perspective, you know, the way where we will then position ourselves would be that you know, it is a complex system to be good at. You can have less people to manage it, and ultimately it will be a lower cost to comply. Right, meeting HKMA's expectations. So, yep, I think that really got to be clear and pitch the business and the cost advantages, and that's where we are supposed to make a difference anyway. You know, with the technology capabilities.
Fantastic. We're at the hour here. You know, there's so much there to unpack with lots of great gems of wisdom from all of you. I want to thank all of you, please, for joining us today at this webinar. Thank you very much, King and Invest Hong Kong for joining with FinTech Association RegTech Committee to put this and push forward the RegTech agenda here in Hong Kong. We have a fantastic, you know, Hong Kong FinTech Week coming up in November, and at that time we will again be organizing a World RegTech Summit, again like the Hong Kong FinTech Week and a lot of other conferences online. So we're fine-tuning it to make it impactful, because by this stage a lot of us are zoomed out in a sense, but hopefully you can tell and you all had received good value from all the speakers here today. So can I put my hands virtually together? Thank you, Irene, Dima, and Frederick for joining us today, and look forward to seeing all of you at FinTech Week and World RegTech Summit. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.